Russia's full-scale aggression against Ukraine has entered its fourth year. With hundreds of thousands of soldiers lost and Ukrainian cities reduced to rubble, the Kremlin continues waging the deadliest war in Europe since World War II. Dozens of churches and cathedrals have come under attack. Meanwhile, the Russian Orthodox Church consistently supports the crimes committed by Russian troops on Ukrainian soil. Putin's aggression has long spilled beyond Ukraine's borders, gradually spreading across Europe through networks of influence. One of the key tools of this hybrid expansion is the Russian Orthodox Church itself, operating as part of a vast intelligence network. The Baltic states, Sweden, Bulgaria, North Macedonia, the Czech Republic. These are just a few of the countries that have openly declared the Russian Orthodox Church's local branches a threat to national security. How does the Russian Orthodox Church's intelligence network operate across Europe? And why does the Kremlin use clergy for political and military ends? Vladimir Putin is a church-going man and a true Christian, said Patriarch Kirill during a liturgy in St. Petersburg. Since the onset of the full-scale invasion, he has openly supported the aggression against Ukraine. Soon after, the Russian Orthodox Church began actively spreading military propaganda, calling on Russians to go to war. Kirill's position comes as no surprise given his past. His ties to Soviet and Russian intelligence services have been well known for years. Recently, several Swiss outlets, citing declassified archives, reported that in the 1970s, Patriarch Kirill, then Vladimir Gundyaev, carried out intelligence missions for the KGB in Geneva under the codename Mikhailov.
For decades, the Russian Federation has steadily and systematically expanded its soft power through cultural, scientific, religious, and other organizations. The number of Russian Orthodox Church representations in Europe has grown accordingly. This is rooted in the very nature of the Russian Orthodox Church, which was revived under Stalin. Since 1943, we've seen the process of integrating Soviet special services, namely the KGB, into the internal affairs of the Church. And these processes didn't stop with the emergence of independent states in the 1990s. Take the All-Russian Assembly in March 2024, for instance. Its purpose was to promote the ideology of the Russian world and justify the so-called special military operation. The Russian Orthodox Church now openly stands alongside the Russian military, stepping far beyond the boundaries of religious enlightenment.
Russian clergy in Europe came under particular scrutiny after the 2022 invasion. Around that time, many countries expelled Russian diplomats, later revealed to be intelligence officers. Their roles in the espionage network were quickly filled by Russian Orthodox Church representatives. With cover and protection from Kremlin handlers, Russian Orthodox Church structures continue operating in the shadows. One of the most influential Russian Orthodox Church figures in Europe is Metropolitan Anthony of Volokolamsk, also known as 38-year-old Anton Sevryuk. He heads the Russian Orthodox Church network in Italy and simultaneously oversees the Moscow Patriarchate's Department for External Church Relations, a key body through which the Russian Orthodox Church coordinates with the Kremlin and engages in foreign policy missions.
In Europe, the Russian Orthodox Church is looking to grow its congregation by targeting Ukrainian refugees. In 2022 to 2023, investigations were conducted here in Italy, in Rome and Milan, with searches of Russian Orthodox Church religious communities. These confirmed that the Church was actively collecting information on Ukrainian refugees. The case went quiet, of course. Why? Because Italy's intelligence service was involved. That tells us the Russian Orthodox Church is seeking to entrench itself further in Europe, expand its parishes, and establish an even broader network, one that supports Kremlin initiatives and backs Russian intelligence operations.
Russia's war on Ukraine has triggered a new wave of ROC Church presence in Europe through the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate. This is no longer just hybrid warfare. It's cognitive warfare, propaganda disguised in religious garb. what's unfolding in Europe today strongly mirrors what we saw in Ukraine between 2009 and 2013. The pace is accelerating rapidly. Despite countermeasures in NATO's eastern flank, the Baltics, Finland, Bulgaria, and especially the Czech Republic, the Russian Orthodox Church's influence as a structure continues to grow.
The Russian Orthodox Church network unites dioceses of the Moscow Patriarchate across many European countries. These dioceses vary in autonomy, but nearly all report to Moscow and to individuals with direct ties to the Kremlin. Increasingly, Russian Orthodox Church churches resemble regime compounds, fenced off, monitored by security cameras, and under guard. Such is the case with the Church of the Kazan icon of the Mother of God in the Swedish town of Västerås. The church has become the focus of investigative reporting. According to France 24, the building may be used for espionage and hybrid operations against Europe. Constructed in the early 2020s, it violated multiple building regulations. Its spire stands 22 meters tall instead of the permitted 10. The church is just 300 meters from an airport and near the strategic E18 highway. Its rector, 68-year-old Pavel Makarenko, has lived in Sweden since the 1990s. It was recently discovered that he received a medal from Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service. A photo of the award was published on the website of an organization closely aligned with Patriarch Kirill. According to France 24, funding for the construction came from the Fund for the Support of Christian Culture and Heritage, a group tied to the Russian state corporation Rosatom.
We understand that espionage isn't just about operations, it's also about shaping social influence in Western societies. The Russian Orthodox Church is clearly being used for this. It forms parishes that, as numerous OSINT researchers like Bellingcat have shown, are often linked to Russian diplomats or intelligence operatives, or serve as legalization hubs for Russian spies in the West.
Sweden's security service believes the Moscow Patriarchate deliberately selects church locations near critical infrastructure and is investigating clerics' ties to Russian intelligence. In Trondheim, Norway, a Russian church sits beside the Air Force Academy. In August 2022, Finland's government shut down a Russian Orthodox Church near coastal Navy installations.
Religion doesn't operate in a vacuum. It's fully aligned with the broader political agenda of the Russian Federation. We see growing military developments, new military towns near Finland, the creation of a separate Leningrad military district, the buildup near the Suwałki Gap. Everyone knows where this is headed. The ideological clash between Moscow and Europe must be seen as a precursor to future acts of aggression. This is a matter for intelligence agencies and concrete evidence. In some cases, it means expelling individuals who aren't citizens. That's already happened multiple times in Europe. We're no longer talking about religious freedom. This is a national security issue, and the options for action are narrowing.
Through its Department for External Church Relations, the Russian Orthodox Church has even recruited Americans and Catholics. This came to light in spring 2023, when several Orthodox parishes in the U.S. received FBI warnings that Russian intelligence services were conducting recruitment operations among clergy and congregants. One name surfaced: Dmitry Petrovsky, an employee of the Moscow Patriarchate's Department for External Church Relations. According to reports, Petrovsky, under the guise of his Russian Orthodox Church affiliation, worked to recruit agents for Russian intelligence among both Russian Orthodox Church members and clergy from other Orthodox churches in the U.S.
The case of Petrovsky, a functioning Russian Orthodox Church official apprehended on U.S. soil, is especially revealing. His laptop, when searched, was found to contain documents that, according to American intelligence, could be used to recruit Orthodox believers in the US and showed direct ties between the Russian Orthodox Church and Russia's intelligence and counterintelligence apparatus. Among the files was a memorandum clearly detailing the collaboration. The SVR, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, was responsible for preparing clergy. The GRU employed them in operational activities in the West, and the FSB, as the primary counterintelligence body, focused on neutralizing Western influence using the Russian Orthodox Church's unique capabilities.
The Kremlin uses any attempts to counter this agent network as fuel for its narrative of persecution against the Russian Church. This presents another challenge for Western societies. The Russian Orthodox Church continues to amplify Kremlin propaganda, undermining trust in Ukraine. Moscow claims it is defending the traditional church from persecution by Kyiv authorities.
Today I spoke of the unity of the Russian Orthodox Church. All world religions rest upon so-called traditional values, which you are now defending.
There is a strong demand for traditional values in Western societies today. With this in mind, and at the Kremlin's direction, the Russian Orthodox Church positions itself as a conveyor of those values. But how does this transmission actually occur? Firstly, the Russian Orthodox Church acts as a soft power tool for promoting Russian narratives. These are not limited to family and morality. They also include the Russian Federation's foreign policy positions, chief among them, Ukraine. The Russian Orthodox Church works actively to push narratives painting fascist Ukraine as attacking the traditional Russian Federation, a bastion of conservative values, and frames Western support for Ukraine as an imposition of liberal ideology. This narrative seeks to portray Russia's defense as a spiritual mission, preserving its authentic identity against cultural colonization. And the Russian Orthodox Church plays a key role in this. It has always been at the forefront of the Russian Federation's soft power campaigns in the West.
Yes, different methods must be explored, but there's also a need for quiet, behind-the-scenes work, discrete actions aimed at prevention. Where specific ties and agent networks exist, they must be dismantled and neutralized where possible. In the Czech Republic, sanctions were even imposed on Patriarch Kirill. This didn't happen arbitrarily. It came after an analysis of his activities promoting aggression, not only against Ukraine, but against European nations as well.
In July 2025, Ukraine stripped Metropolitan Onufry, head of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate, of his citizenship. According to the SBU, he obtained Russian citizenship voluntarily back in 2002 and never disclosed it. He also actively obstructed the Ukrainian Church's pursuit of independence from Moscow and maintained close ties with Patriarch Kirill. Since the start of the full-scale war, the SBU has opened over 170 criminal cases against clergy of the Moscow-affiliated UOC. The majority of them are being investigated for treason.
Ukraine approaches this situation as a security threat. You can be a priest, a plumber, or a teacher. But if your actions amount to collaboration or working for the aggressor, including through sabotage, then security agencies will respond decisively. By now, the number of cases against UOCMP clergy exceeds 100. And in many, there is clear evidence of cooperation with the Russian aggressor. This is about neutralizing hostile influence.
To stir hysteria around the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church refuses to remove the UOCMP from its statute. In some cases, such as with Onufry's documents, Russian Orthodox Church representatives themselves release proof of his Russian citizenship, deliberately fueling internal political tensions in Ukraine.
Efforts to limit Russian influence through religion are also underway in Estonia. As Martin Tullen, a representative of the Estonian Ministry of Internal Affairs, explained, Russian monasteries must be seen not just as religious institutions, but as symbols of the Russian world ideology on Estonian soil. One such monastery, the Putitsa Dormition Convent, lies just 30 kilometers from the Russian border. Tallinn has demanded that local churches sever ties with the Moscow Patriarchate. At the same time, Kremlin narratives about persecution of the Orthodox Church in Estonia are being actively pushed in Russian-speaking social media circles. In 2023, Nikolai Zmiev, a representative of the Moscow Patriarchate, was expelled from North Macedonia for promoting Russian interests and sabotaging the Macedonian Church's bid for independence from Moscow. Soon after, Zmiev was also expelled from Bulgaria. Bulgarian counterintelligence stated his activities posed a national security threat. The Czech Republic is also distancing itself from Moscow. There, the Orthodox Church ranks second in number of believers. According to the Czech Senate Security Committee, religious institutions of this kind may be used for Russian influence operations.
I do not consider the Russian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate to be a church, nor its representatives to be clergy. It is part of the Kremlin's repressive apparatus, engaged in Russia's influence operations.
When we talk about building a religious state, it's clear Putin looks with envy toward Iran and North Korea. In North Korea, they've essentially created a new religion, one where the state and faith have merged. And that's the direction Putin, or rather collective Putinism, sees as the path to preserving power. They seek to co-opt religion, especially the Russian Orthodox Church, as a vehicle for their survival. The problem? Sooner or later, Putinism will collapse, but the Russian Orthodox Church will remain. And since the Church has taken on the role of justifying and participating in crimes, its discreditation is inevitable.
In its sermons and publications, the Russian Orthodox Church frequently speaks of the spiritual decay of the West, European Satanism, and a war for souls. This creates the ideological foundation for confrontation with Europe. Thus, the Russian Orthodox Church's preaching becomes a tool of demoralization and distrust in democracy. The Russian Orthodox Church is now an integral part of Russian military propaganda, mobilizing Russian society and Orthodox believers worldwide. It has become part of the quasi-ideology of the so-called Russian world. By appealing to spirituality and traditional values, the Russian Orthodox Church glorifies sacrifice on the battlefield as the highest form of faith and civic duty.
What is the religious angle here? It serves to blur the image of the aggressor. No one says, "They came to kill you." Instead, it's framed as a holy struggle for family, tradition, and righteousness. This changes the narrative completely, and that's exactly how future Russian military actions in Europe will be disguised, behind religious slogans shouted by those who will insist the aggression is morally justified.
Ideas of holy war and dying for the motherland are everywhere. We've all seen the horrifying footage of Russian occupiers taking their own lives out of hopelessness. This too is a religious, even sacral effect. They lack true understanding of Christian doctrine, which values life, not death. True Christianity calls us to live, not die. But in this twisted version, the goal is to die for the motherland, to fulfill a sacred duty. Patriarch Kirill told me so. I didn't read it in the Bible. I was told to go and die, not to live for Christ's ideals, but to sacrifice myself. And that's what this peculiar, ironic reinterpretation of Christian teaching looks like under the Russian Orthodox Church.
While Russian missiles continue to destroy Ukrainian cities, the Kremlin is waging another war. A quiet one, but no less dangerous. A war for minds and souls. And the key weapon in this war is the Russian Orthodox Church. Today, the Russian Orthodox Church is no longer just a religious institution. It is an ideology cloaked in cassocks. It is part of a hybrid war, where faith has been weaponized. To resist this threat is not to oppose religion. It is to defend sovereignty and the right of every nation to determine its own spiritual and political future. Because a church shadowed by the Kremlin is no longer a sanctuary, it is an outpost of Putin's aggressive Russia.